Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. My name is Steve Smith and I'm your host, and this is another segment of McMahon's A Design Brief, which you know so well and I know you all love and enjoy. Now this one's with golf course architect Harley Kruse. To help with the introduction, I've got joining me Bruno Kay, Golf Business Manager from McMahon's. G'day Bruno, how are you?
Yeah, good, Steve. How are you, mate?
Very well, thank you, mate. Now, it's a bit of a busy time. It is winter, but we've not long ago been in Melbourne. We've had the National Turf Conference, the ASTMA, and I know that also the Society of Australian Golf Course Architects were down in Melbourne as well, as they do on the back of that, and they have their annual meet-up, and they usually visit a golf course. Now, I see that they were down at Commonwealth Golf Club, and you were there also. There was a bit of a mixing and mingling of members of the society along with the partners of the society. You were down there as well, mate?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, so down there for the week for the conference, and then the Friday we caught up at Commonwealth in the morning and played 18 holes, and then had a lunch afterwards. Yeah, sort of good to catch up with a lot of people that you don't see all the time. So yeah, it's always a good day, and obviously Commonwealth, it was pretty nice out there. So
absolutely.
And yeah, kind of bit me pretty hard, so on the golf sense. So I was
very good.
I played a series of holes in a row, and that was my highlight of the day. And then otherwise, it was pretty rubbish. So, yeah, but great day walking around. It's a great walk around that course, and yeah, I mean the greens were immaculate, and just rolling out and true, and the whole golf course is maturing nicely after the works a couple of years ago.
Fantastic, mate, and good to, as you mentioned there, you're mingling with all the other members of the Society of Australian Golf Course Architects, which is good. I saw some photos, yourself, some of your team. Alex was down there as well, one of your shapers, and it looked like a great lunch to have chatting and catching up with lots of different people, like you say.
Yeah, it was good catch up, and then I was ready to head home after a long week. So yeah, feet were sore after standing up all week, and yeah, it was well worth it. And the conference was great, and yeah, we obviously had a stand at the conference, and yeah, a bit of interest. Caught up with some GMs, obviously GMA conference on in conjunction with the ASMA.
Yep.
So yeah, that always is a good one. So yeah, and caught up with plenty of people that you sort of probably only see at those things each year, so it's always good. Few beers were had, and yeah, good week.
Very good, mate. Now, this is, as I mentioned, this is a conversation that I've got with golf course architect Harley Kruse. Mate, I'm really excited to share this one with everybody. And you and I were saying you've done some work with Harley as well. That I love to talk about the fact that you've worked with so many different architects, because it goes to a lot of the work that you do and the different types of work and how you fit in with what the architects need and what they're looking for and all the different types of projects. Tell us for some of the work you have done with Harley.
Most recent was just a small job at Gold Creek. Yeah, we just did a bunker and some other work around, I think, the 14th. So the green, bit of eco bunker and capillary concrete, bit of reshaping, drainage, whatnot. So that was the most recent with Harley. But then the bigger job we did with Harley was a few years ago down at Bateman's Bay at Club Catalina.
Yep.
We did the 15th hole there. So yeah, that was sort of a bit of a kickstart to what everyone was hoping was going to be a, sort of roll on with some more. But they kind of pulled the handbrake on it, and they still haven't really done any more as far as construction goes. They've obviously put in a new irrigation system and done some stuff in house, I believe. But yeah, and a lot of tree removal. But yeah, that was the last job we did with Harley, and yeah, it was great work with him down there. He was sort of there a lot and hands on almost as well at times, jumping on the bunker rake and whatnot. So yeah, that was a good little job, and that hole looks really good. That was with the Zoysia surrounds and whatnot. So it's hopefully they do some more down there at some stage, and yeah, hopefully we get to work with Harley on some other projects in the future.
Yeah, well, no, that was well received, that hole in 15 at Club Catalina, or Catalina Club, I think is what it's now termed. But I have had Darcy Jones, the superintendent.
Names a few times.
Yeah, they do, and I've had Darcy Jones, the superintendent, on Keeper of the Greens on this on the podcast as well, not so long ago, and talked about their plans.
Yeah, listen to that.
Yeah, plans looking forward. So hopefully all is still on the cards for them to move through some of those works in the near future. But you've already started some of that there for them in not so long ago, just a couple of years ago. But mate, this conversation with Harley Kruse is a ripper. I'm looking forward to bringing it to everybody. And he's done some. He's been in so many different parts of the world. He's got a very good breadth of work across Australia in general, and he's experienced in a lot of different things, mate. So I'll throw it over to you to introduce us.
This is the next episode of the Design Brief, the Golfing Greenkeeper. You're about to listen to a conversation that Steve has had with Harley Kruse, golf architect, Kruse Golf. Enjoy the listen. I'm sure it'll be interesting and some good insight into Harley's career and what he's done over the years. Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to it myself. Enjoy, everybody.
This is episode number 198. Ladies and gentlemen, fantastic to be back with a brand new segment of the Design Brief here, and I'm in person. I've made my way to Elanora Country Club on Sydney's Northern Beaches, and I've got joining me here on the other side of the desk in Elanora Country Club's wonderful clubhouse here in a private dining room, Harley Kruse from Kruse Golf. G'day, Harley. How are you, mate?
G'day, Steve. Very well, thank you.
Mate, thanks for joining me on this one. We haven't had a sit-down one before, you and I. We've been wandering around the golf courses, talking with portable mics. We've done videos on social media in the past, but it's great to have you here talking about yourself, your career, some of your work, and some rabbit holes in golf course architecture, mate. I'm interested. I'm excited. Thanks for joining in.
Yeah, it's good to be here, and it's not a bad view from the clubhouse here at Elanora, looking out over the Pacific Ocean.
There's worse places to be in the country, that's for sure.
It's a pretty good spot.
It's wonderful. Nice elevation. I think we're about 130 odd metres up here above sea level. It's fantastic. Really nice. Now, mate, one of the things that we talk about here is it's golf course architecture, conversations and different things. But what I do like to start off with, and I hide this from my interviewees, is I start off with some quick questions, short answer questions, if you like. It's called the Design Brief 5. And, mate, I keep them blind for you. We get some interesting and different answers from different people. So are you ready to go?
Hit me with them.
Hit you with them. We'll see how this one rolls. Which is more exciting to work on from your perspective? Do you like to work on a new design from scratch or a remodel of an existing golf course? What do you have a preference for, maybe? Or
good question. Look, straight up, I guess a lot of my career has been new builds overseas, rather remodeling existing courses. I think, obviously, with a new build, it's the entire 18-hole on a 80 to 90 hectare piece of site. Delivering a brand new build, starting from walking a brand new green site to actually delivering 18 holes a couple of years later.
Yep.
Or in our game, you've got to play the patience game through DAs and things like that. Might be more than 2 years later, but look,
sure.
An 18 new build where you've got your design stamp over every square inch of the place is very satisfying, very rewarding, and I've been lucky to have been involved with quite a few of those. Not so much here in Australia, but one or two in Australia, but more overseas.
Okay, very good. I wonder, a question I've always considered myself and not knowing, so here's a perfect time to ask. How do you go about getting the juices flowing, the creativity flowing with a blank canvas like that? Do you get inspiration from being there on site and some of the local environment or bits of, how does that work? Do you have to get your head in the game?
No, look, at the end of the day, this is what we do, right? So I guess, some sites are more exciting than others. And, if you've got a site with, 30-metre high sand dunes and it's sand as far as the eye can see and you're next to the ocean, then that's pretty exciting, right? And those things don't always happen. But from time to time you get something like that, but it's a rare thing. And then other times you might be, I've been on the mountainsides of Korea and I've been equally on a flat site years ago in Shanghai that was covered with fish farms, effectively covered with water,
wow.
And you're going to say, well, we're going to put a golf course here. I think
right.
the thing is, and I think that's part of a part of what we do as architects. We're fortunate, or I've been fortunate, to have different sites in different countries and different parts of the world, from mountainsides with rock to sand dunes near the beach in Vietnam. So I think that's what we deal with. And I think, as I said, probably a brand new golf course of 18 holes on a new site is sort of where the excitement happens. And if it's, you can have a site as flat as this table that we're sitting around, and rendering that and turning that into golf course through earthworks design is sometimes where all the skills have got to come together to make something from nothing, and make it look like it was the hand of nature rather than the hand of man is one aspect. And then, of course, you get the natural golf course sites, such as, which we see in the country, which many of the audience will know in terms of Royal Melbourne is a natural site, or Barnbougle, the National Golf Club down at Cape Shank, the new one 7 Mile in Hobart. They're sand dunes next to the beach. You're rendering, you're picking through your routing design, which is the most critical part of those sites. You're finding golf holes that exist naturally, and I guess through the mind of an architect, looking at how you turn that piece of ground into 18 holes that work beautifully well together. So no, very good, very interesting. Good to pick your brains. That's only the first one. Number 2, and I like to hear this one. It's a little bit different. A par 3 to finish or not? I guess here in Sydney we've got the Lakes, which has both nines finishing on a par 3.
Pennant Hills is also the same.
Yeah. Look, I think that par 3s are great connecting holes in a round of 18, and I think if and using them as connecting holes is where in a routing design they work really well. I know, obviously, with Royal Sydney, when Gil did his first plan to the club there, he had the 18th as a par 3, playing from east to west, and the routing was really good, and it was a finish on a par 3 at the clubhouse, and it was sort of evoking, a little bit of, I think that at the time, if I'm not mistaken, some of the description around the hole was evoking a little bit of Fifth West as part of the principles of what the hole could be. But at the end of the day, that hole, that routing didn't fly with members, and the club was quite strong on sort of their 18th hole, which has sort of been part of iconic finishes of the Australian Open, is what they wanted to keep. But there was a lot of merit in Gil's other routing. So look, I guess there's precedences of par 3 finishes, and sometimes your hand is forced to do it. I'm involved with the routing design of course overseas at the moment, where the 9th hole is a par 3, the 18th's not, but it's a course where the 2 nines might flip.
It can change,
Yep.
Interesting. No, it's always good to see what your thoughts are from an architecture perspective, because we often have these conversations when we're out playing golf with different people, when we're enjoying a round, and I know sometimes some people sort of feel a little bit let down by finishing on a par 3. Now, I'm going to throw one at you, and I did this last time with Michael Henderson, which is, we'll switch that around. A par 3 to start a golf course or not?
Again, if we sort of think about some of the sort of, the principles of good golf course design and principles around getting away, as Dr. Alison McKenzie used to say, start the round of golf with a gentle handshake. And in other words, get everyone off, get them away, get them down the fairway without too much trouble. And I think First West of Royal Melbourne is a classic example of a gentle handshake. The widest fairway in the world, no bunkers off the tee, gets people off and away, and that, of course, as just from an operations point of view, that a par 3 hole doesn't do that in the sense that it's fraught with hazards and play, and it just does it's a blockage straight away
from the beginning.
And even par 3 second holes are also equally, if you can try and avoid that, just to get the golf rounds moving and flowing, is better than starting with a par 3.
Yep. No? Okay. All good. Number 4. What's the most unusual design element you've seen incorporated into a golf hole or a golf course? And last time I mentioned this, like a stone wall, like North Berwick, or we see windmills here in Australia at some points, and there's trees in the middle of fairways. What's something that you find is unusual?
And those three things you just mentioned, windmills, trees and stone walls, is something that I've been involved with new builds where we've had all of that, right?
Yeah, right. Okay.
So there's, I mean, I guess if you think of even timber railroad tie sleeper faces to bunkers,
yes,
that's not done that very often.
Yeah.
And I think Neil Craft has done a bit of that over in Adelaide with some of the work over there. We've got water hazards. We've got, I think, it might be I'm sort of trying to think in terms of unusual things.
Because I find a couple of things I mentioned, I find when I'd first discovered that on a golf course or seen photographs with it, I was like, what is that? Like, it just seems so removed from convention when I was younger. But I hadn't travelled around. I hadn't seen stuff.
Yeah. I mean, some people, until you've been to the old course at St Andrews or other places, would have never seen the extent of revetted bunkers, for example. If you're growing up on, Melbourne Sandbelt or, a majority of Australian courses, in 20, 30 years ago, you'd never see the idea of turf revetting didn't exist.
Yeah.
So not common in this country, but you go to Europe and the UK and it's very common.
Yep.
So unusual in Australia, not unusual in the UK.
Yeah, fair call. And likewise, that we hear about the Sandbelt style of bunkers here that we see others around the world try and replicate because they don't have that. So it's what you say.
And look, I guess. I've seen just recently. I was very fortunate at the beginning of the year. In fact, January the 1st to be over in Paris to go and look at, to have New Year's Eve with my family there. But we're also January the 1st was walking down a very crunchy frosted fairways of the first hole of Fontainebleau Golf Course, where Clayton DeVries Pont are consulting architects. And that course uses rock in the fairway. There is actually rock, existing natural rock, where the fairway is actually mown around the rock and it's left in the fairway.
Wow.
Unusual,
there you go.
yes.
Unusual,
But it's just stunning, spectacular golf course.
It works. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There you go. That's what I'm talking. Perfect. There you go. Very good. The final one, mate, is number 5. Can you name for us one of your favourite golf course designs that you like in particular? Something that you're a bit of a fan of?
Oh, well, straight up for me, it's the West Course at Royal Melbourne, right?
Okay.
Absolutely, my favourite.
Yeah.
Golf course in the whole world, and I think what was done there with that amazing piece of land. It's for forever reason. It's the number one piece of golf ground and golf course in this country.
Yeah. Yep. Very good, mate. Very nice and easy. It gets people a bit of interest as well as they hear picking your brains and they're assessing where this conversation might go in the future. But it's a good understanding of how you think about things. Mate, now we want to get into your career a little bit. You're a golf course architect, very well established. You've had a long career, and I would like you to take us through a little bit of that if you can. How did it start for you? How do you get into golf course architecture as a younger Harley Kruse? And I know you've worked with a couple of major design firms in Australia throughout your career, now having your own in Kruse Golf. Tell us a little bit about how it began for you and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it started by accident, I guess. Look, I didn't grow up sort of playing golf at 10 and drawing golf holes when I was 15 or something like this before getting into it. I had a background in a horticultural degree. I was then doing a landscape architecture degree. My thinking at the time was to become a landscape architect and practice in the profession of landscape architecture. And I guess if you look at who's in the profession in Australia today, it's either civil engineers with your sort of university training. It's civil engineers or it's landscape architects. Typically end up in golf course architecture. So I was in my final year of landscape architecture at RMIT in Melbourne, and a fellow student was heading overseas to do some travel, as I think you do sometimes in mid-uni, and just go and take a year off and do travel. And she'd been working at not golf course architect's office. She was working at a landscape architect and architect's office, a company called Ross Perrett Proprietary Limited. Anyway, the short of long it is that a vacancy came up. I went and had an interview with Ross Perrett, and we talked about lots of different things in sport and AFL and this sort of stuff. And anyway, I landed with a job there working part-time in my final year of landscape architecture, and Ross Perrett Proprietary Limited, and Ross had written his master's thesis on golf course architecture. Ross was helping Peter Thomson and Michael Wolveridge, Thomson Wolveridge and Associates as they were called back then, a company that Peter and Michael formed in 1965 on the back of Peter's 5th British Open to design golf courses. And they were getting very busy. They were doing golf courses in Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and consulting to I think nearly every Royal Club in Australia and a lot of others at the same time.
Bigger name clubs at the time, yeah.
And so they were busy, and they needed a design office. They needed support of a design office that could actually do all the documentation for them, and one thing led to another. And so by the time I graduated in 1989, I was actually 2 days later working full-time for Ross Perrett Proprietary Limited, and within, I can't remember it, by almost like 12 months later, Thomson Wolveridge Associates became Thomson Wolveridge Perrett. Okay. And I was kind of part of the furniture that came along with Ross Perrett. And Ross was doing everything from clubhouse design. He was doing master planning of golf properties. He was, and Ross had been involved with the master planning of the very early days of the National Golf Club.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And there's a fantastic story there of Ross. But I think that opportunity to work with Thomson Wolveridge Perrett was, as I said, I fell into it as part of the furniture of Ross Perrett Proprietary Limited. And one thing led to another, and here we are today. But it was, and I think they were busy. They were really busy. And at one stage there, we used to fly up to Jakarta, Indonesia, and I think at one stage there in Indonesia alone, let alone their other spots, they had probably 6 or 7 projects, 18-hole courses in construction at the one time. Wow. Like it was busy. It was a very busy period. So that sweet spot in Indonesia was between about 1989 and 1996.
Wow.
In the meantime, there was things in Malaysia, Thailand. Peter had always been doing stuff in Japan.
Okay.
And on and off for many years, because he used to play up there a lot and would have work up in there, which was kind of a lot of that work. The local Japanese engineering companies were doing the documentation.
Right, okay.
And then I guess by mid-90s, we're doing stuff in Australia here. In fact, the first golf course I ever worked on was Twin Waters, and it was my role there was very peripheral. I'm the uni guy, sort of fresh out of uni, the young whipping boy, so to speak, in the office. But fortunately, the office made it the opportunities for us to go to these sites, and it was Twin Waters, and I'm guessing that was 89, 90.
Yeah, right.
Then we're in the planning design. I remember walking the flood-prone paddocks, Coomera River there for Hope Island development.
Oh, wow.
So the first build I was ever involved with was a highly manufactured golf course, because it was in a floodplain and it was a big civil earthworks project, Hope Island.
Yeah, right. Because that, of course, was Thomson Wolveridge Perrett design. Yep.
Yeah, so that was, and then that I guess that was a 1.2 million cubic meters of earthworks. They had big bulldozers and scrapers, and the big toys in the bottom of this hole, which became the big lake. So that was, and a big civil engineering component. So that was the first sort of real build that I was involved with, sort of start to finish.
Wow. Okay.
I didn't actually design the earthworks. I was still the landscape architect in the business there, but that was, back then that was a $4.5 million landscaping budget for that golf course in 1991.
It was a big project, because, and of course, what came out from that, from memory as a kid, was, from me looking at the photos of a completed project, was this British style we talked about, pot bunkers, that sort of type of thing, without the riveted faces, but it had these round, small bunkers dotted all over the place of the golf course, and we'd never really seen that much on the East Coast, so much here in Australia, certainly not around the Goldie or Sydney.
No, you're probably right. I can't think of other new builds. I mean, Thomson Wolveridge did some work down at South Coast, New South Wales, around Pambula there. But I think probably for Peter and Michael, Twin Waters, and off the back of Twin Waters was Hope Island. Off the back of Hope Island was Camden Lakeside.
Ah, yeah,
and they were literally projects where the shaping team moved from one project, did their next project, and sort of moved down to Sydney and did that. But I guess by then, Peter, in his mind, was he was really trying to replicate British links golf.
As Camden Lakeside was, as well.
Yeah, British links golf, small pot bunkers. Peter's was, get in the bunker, play your shot, a couple of swipes of the rake, out you go.
Off, move on.
Yeah, so, but that was the early beginning. So
there you go.
Yeah, Hope Island, that was a 1990, 1991, which It's probably a long time ago.
Thinking back, mate, it's 2026, yes.
But it was a good start, and I think, and before we knew it, I was, we're on planes to Indonesia and all these amazing locations and eating crazy, spicy food out the back of a shed somewhere on a job site.
What an amazing start into golf, golf course architecture, and really you coming in from a small level and just getting right into it, right?
Yeah.
That's a big start.
Well, yeah, look, they were busy, and they needed people on the ground, and it was a great bunch of people to work with, and I think Peter and Michael and Ross, were busy, and they were very happy to sort of, they needed bods on the ground, but they're very happy to mentor people, make opportunities for a younger generation of golf course architects to come through. And if you look at the Society of Golf Course Architects today, and Justin Trott, Paul Mogford, myself were all people that went through the Thomson Wolveridge Perrett office back then.
Okay. So, right.
So
you're all former colleagues at some point in time. You knew each other in that era.
Correct, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah,
right. And well, there you go. Okay. So life takes you through Thomson Wolveridge Perrett. You're a busy person. I know then when you move on, but how do things change from that point for you?
Yeah, so they had a project up in Shanghai, the one I was talking about. It was a dead flat site out on the outskirts of Shanghai. I'd started to, sort of getting a little frustrated in the sense of, I've been working with them from 89, 90 and wanting to sort of move up and forwards, I guess, professionally and was thinking about the next steps, and I was getting more. I'd started off doing landscape architecture with the golf course, which I still do today, but it was more and more into a lot of stuff. Visiting site, on site, getting things designed and getting things delivered on site, and I was sort of interested in the other side of it a bit in terms of the construction side of it a bit as well.
Okay.
I think as a golf course architect, if you start to learn more about the nuts and bolts of construction, you're going to be a better architect.
Sure.
And so the opportunity came to move to Shanghai. I'd been in, actually before then, there was a place called Shantou in southern China. I was there on site during the construction of a golf course there in southern China, all on sand dunes, right near the beach in southern China. We shaped it all. It was myself as sort of the construction superintendent. Well, not really. In a way, I was construction superintendent, design associate, construction manager. There was only two expats on the site, myself and a shaper, Larry Smith, who would shape everything with the excavator, and the rest of it was like 300 Chinese and us two guys there in 1997, 98, around that time. And we basically had a local team on the site doing some of the clearing of some of the grasses and weeds. And the whole thing was shaped up in 102 days, 18 holes of shape. We literally, it was a natural sand dune site. The routing looked at the natural features of the site. We literally shaped it, tees, do the back tee, the next tees, and we'd start moving down the fairways.
Just as
we walked down the fairway with the excavator, I'd be a head marker. It had a bunker marked out there, and we'd get to a green site and shape it. And that was with Thomson Wolveridge Perrett, so there were drawings done. But a lot of it was also just that micro level of on-site
on
working
ground.
with it. And it wasn't until we actually cleared did you reveal the natural shapes that were there. So the whole thing was shaped tee to green on hole by hole over 102 days, and then everyone and being on sand irrigation followed suit, and off we went. And then from there, there was an opportunity to go to a project in Shanghai, which I went up there to the project in Shanghai, and then I was working there with a shaper, guy called Peter Waddell, who I'd worked with and known since. Well, Peter worked on Twin Waters, he worked on Hope Island, he worked on Camden Lakeside. Peter had been also doing a lot of shaping back up in Asia, and it was Peter was the shaper on this project in Shanghai. I was sort of design associate, and another Aussie friend, Paul Leas, was the construction superintendent, was going to take over the growing in of the golf course. So we had three of us on the site there. Anyway, the opportunity came to actually basically work directly for the developer and help him out. And I kind of was the time to, I guess, part ways with Thomson Wolveridge Perrett.
Yeah, right.
Those things aren't easy when you've come through as a young uni whipping boy from day one, but eventually
you're grown up now.
Eventually, it was time to move on at that time. Got that project finished by end of '99, beginning of 2000, and it was a good build. Taking a very difficult site. and dealing with, the very early days of that site. I think of poor old Pete was given a Russian-made bulldozer to shape with, and you could walk so much faster than the speed of this bulldozer. That if you had that machine, it would have taken 300 days to shape that thing, as opposed to 102 days down in southern China.
Yeah, right.
And we actually had the army dig a lake out by hand. Literally, 500 people digging a lake, lake out by hand, and all sorts of things.
Wow. We just can't wrap our heads around that sort of stuff.
There was military ordnance on the site from when the Japanese had been bombing Shanghai. So there was that's the interesting thing. These sorts of pieces of ground and sites. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So you you're out on your own essentially at that point. Is it an in-between step, or when you went away from Thomson Wolveridge Perrett?
I think I went away in '98. I can't remember when the President's Cup was. President's Cup was '98. I think Australian Open was Royal Adelaide late '98. President's Cup would have been '98. I think I came back to Melbourne, and I'd had a very small involvement with that when Mike Bodney was out with the PGA looking at Melbourne courses of which one would host the President's Cup.
Okay.
I came back, and I think I came back for a President's Cup breakfast, it might have been, or something like this. I was back in Melbourne anyway. I was seated next to Bart Collins, who Bart was I think his title was President of Great White Shark Enterprises, which is obviously Greg Norman's company.
Yep.
And Bart and I were chatting that day, and we kept in touch. And he said, "You've got to come up and at some stage when you finish in China, come up and have a chat to us in Sydney with Bob Harrison." And
right.
So of course China finished, and then at the beginning of 2000, I went up to Sydney and we had a chat with Bob. And a few months later, day one of work for me with Greg Norman Golf Course Design and with Bob Harrison in the Sydney office was meeting Bob, because I'm a Melbourne born and bred guy, but meeting Bob down at Cape Schanck at the National Golf Club, walking around the sand dunes.
Wow.
Well, actually, was walking down the valley of the second hole of the National, the par 5 hole, and meeting with the shapers there that were doing the bunkers on the right-hand side down on that hole. And then waving across to Michael Wolveridge, my old boss, on a sand dune in the distance, and then sitting in a meeting with the golf club in between Mike Wolveridge on one side of me and Bob Harris on the left. And
right.
And so that was the day one of working for Greg Norman Design, which that was then the beginning of the next 10 years. So between 2000 and 2010, it was working with Greg Norman Design. And
wow.
Bob was happier doing the Australian projects, and Bob at that time, he had Sanctuary Lakes going on. He had the Moona course at the National, which he's extremely passionate about, of course, and did a brilliant job with that course. There was the land on the other side of the fence at the National, which was Bob had done a million roundings for different 36 holes as golf out there as well. There was Brookwater going on in Brisbane. There was the Vintage going on. The first day I met Greg was actually at Sydney Airport, and then flying up to the Vintage.
To go and see the Vintage
in a chopper, and landing rockstar style at the Vintage out of the chopper,
as you do, Harley. I can picture you
and walking. I hadn't done that before.
I can picture you with the sunnies on, collar up. I got it.
and walking the paddocks of the farmland, which became the Vintage, right? And Bob had the course staked out with tees and greens on it, and going through and walking the routing design and tweaking that with Greg was the first day I met Greg, and so that was going on, and then Elston was going on as well. So Bob was busy with a lot of things in Australia, but meanwhile there was things in Asia to do as well, and Bob was very happy for me to service the Asian projects.
Okay.
So we had a couple of things were getting finished off in the Philippines. There was a golf course that had stalled and then got going again with new owners outside of Delhi in India, at a place called Greater Noida. And then there was a project that had stopped and it got going again in 2002 or 3, the one in South Korea I was talking about before, up in the hills of South Korea. And then we had the Mission Hills group in China, southern China, come to us and wanting to do 5 courses all at once. And of which was I thought I'd seen a lot, but
5 courses all at once, because that's a 12-hole 12-course facility,
Mission
isn't it?
Hills, today is a 12-course facility there in
yeah.
Dongguan, Shenzhen, but the Dongguan part of the project was literally building 5 golf courses all at once. So,
wow.
So, of which we had the pick of the land for where, of the 5 courses, the client said to us, look, and Brian Curley had done a sort of a master plan for the overall 5-course site, and it was the client got us up there and we're sort of walking this ground. It was, which bit of ground do you want? They'd already had the machines on site. Literally the side of 300, I kid you not, 300 dump trucks, 200 excavators on the site going 2 11-hour shifts per day. So they were going virtually 24 hours a day doing this golf course earthworks. Wow. Things were moving, and I had to sort of quickly pick what we wanted in terms of the best ground to do 18 holes of golf. And my mission was to obviously design it well as best we could, and pick the best, selfishly pick the best land and get the best golf holes, design it in such a way that we would do the earthworks as efficiently as possible, and get a good outcome. And it was a great project to be involved with. It just meant lots of trips to flying into Hong Kong, picked up in the van across the border into Shenzhen and get things done.
So this would be ultimately the Greg Norman course of Mission Hills?
Yeah, I think they call it the Norman course.
The
of
Norman
Mission
course,
Hills.
yeah. Because they're all named after players, I think is how it works. Not that I've been there, but okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And look, that was an interesting process. I was in Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago doing some work up there now, but looking back on that, so that was 2002, 2003, which seems like yesterday to me, but of course it's not. But again, it was an interesting build because I think there were other brands, shall we say, put on the other golf courses, the Lazabal and gosh, I've forgotten who they were now. But
I'm just trying to think. Even
there was a Ledbetter course because
Sorenstam have one eventually. I could be wrong.
You're right.
I think she did.
Annika, Ledbetter, and Lazabal, what have you. And a difficult site because the rainfall there, and this might put things into context a bit, it was about 5 metres of rain a year, to the point that you almost didn't need an irrigation system, right? To grow grass. So it was interesting there too, working with an American design company designing all the other 4 courses. We were the one Australian office designing the detail of the Norman course. And an irrigation design came back with 2,000 heads for the Norman course, and there was heads miles off the playing surfaces and things like this. And the client had bought 5 golf courses worth of irrigation, so it was a big deal for the supplier, of course. But I then said to the irrigation guys, "We don't need heads out there." Well, the design has them. And I ended up sort of at the end of the day, I think we cut it from 2,000 heads down to 1,100 heads for the 18 holes. So we cut a lot of heads out of it. Simply didn't need it. And it might have needed just purely for establishment the first few months, but there's so much local rainfall. So we reduced the number of heads. The earthworks volume component, cut and fill component for the Norman course was the least of all 5 courses.
Right.
So while Norman comes in with a premium design fee, we put a lot of effort in designing the earthworks and working as much as we could with these. There's quite deep valleys. There's quite a big big cuts and fills going on. But I think the earthworks for the normal course, this might sound like a lot of volume, but this was about 800,000. But it was the least. And when it came to the grassing, it was interesting because that whole perennial grassing debate was, we want to use paspalum. And I'm thinking, okay, well, why would we want to use paspalum? Anyway, the client's comment was, well, Sand River Golf Course down in Shenzhen, it's got paspalum fairways. It's the most pure, cleanest, best conditioned course in China. Mm-hmm. So we go down there, it was amazing.
Yep.
And you look and go, wow, this is phenomenal. And talking to the superintendent there, it was like, oh, yes, but we irrigate with salt water from the river 6 months of the year.
Right.
So it's like, well, that's a logical reason to use paspalum, right?
Yeah.
We're up in the hills, miles away from any source of salt water. Why use paspalum? Again, there's a solution. What is the optimal grass for that particular site? And so we said to the client, we don't really want to use paspalum. Oh, but the other ones, of course, is you. But he said, look,
here's the yardstick.
You guys are Norman Design. If you tell us what you want, we'll do it. So we end up using just common Zoysia Matrella.
Okay.
Tee to green on that golf course. And it was literally the common Zoysia Matrella. You'd see a little landscape supply shop on the corner of a road somewhere, little patties little square slabs of zoysia. And we used just common Zoysia Matrella on the fairways there. And fortunately we did, because at the end of the day, the inputs, both in terms of irrigation, fertilising, chemical control, everything like that,
just minimal.
The zoysia was minimal. And within 12 months, those 4 other courses with the Paspalan fairways all of a sudden had common Bermuda in them and issues going on. And it wasn't the right grass.
Yep.
And so
wow.
So anyway,
That's
they got a really good surface out of that common Zoysia Matrella.
Wow.
And obviously Zoysias today and Matrella Zoysias are talked about a lot in particularly Asian golf, but even here in Sydney golf. A few years ago we used Zoysia Matrella, a variety. At Kalara Golf Course here in Sydney.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, wow. There you go. That's interesting, mate. Very interesting background that I liked. We touched on the grasses too. A lot of the audience will be interested in hearing that just the same. But mate, a very different part of the world to what we're used to in Australia is the Asian side of golf. It's a different culture. It's a different way they view golf, but also clearly the way that they go about constructing it and what they want as an outcome is a different way of life as well, I imagine. So, sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, well, there's certain. I guess there's not a lot of, Australia here we've got some traditions that go of golf course construction and building golf courses. It goes back, over 100 years. So
exactly.
You're dealing with new environments, new culture, new people, and a sport that's typical. Obviously it's a sport typically in Asia for the well-heeled people. But there's a lot of. You've got private membership clubs up, and when we're talking about Asia, we're talking an entire region that goes, right through. China, India, right through Southeast Asia.
Yeah, that's right.
To Australia.
Yeah.
So there is a range of resort-type golf, membership-type golf. There's the golf and real estate project. There's a lot going on and new builds.
Very interesting, mate. And that gets us to, when did you start Kruse Golf?
So Kruse Golf really kicked off in 2010, 11, around that time.
Yep.
And Bob Harrison and I were doing some work together, collaborating on some things up in China, because I guess off the back of being no longer involved with Greg Norman Design, when Greg closed the Sydney office on the back of the 2008 crisis and the GFC, global financial crisis. Kruse Golf started in 2010, 2011.
Yep.
And there was still work going on up in China. And I had a good deep network of industry friends, colleagues, and knowledge of the China market. And so we had a few projects going on up in China, and a couple of those started, and then a new president came in and closed golf in China and virtually shut things down overnight.
Right,
So that all came to a grinding halt.
Full stop, right?
So there was so as a consequence of that, nothing going on in China, and Bob had a few of his own projects. I had a few of my own projects, and so I just sort of ended up more doing some of my own work, I guess, and Bob was doing his. So So it's I guess, and that opened my mind up to the opportunity of sort of design collaboration. I think when you go to any of these sites and projects, 2 eyes on a piece of land or 2 minds looking at issues and problems to solve is better than one, and equally 3 minds. So the collaborating with others who share similar design principles and ideas is something that I've always entertained. And a good thing to do.
You've been doing it longer than what some people may know of more just recently. You've actually been doing it for the most part of the last, 15 plus years. And even when you're involved with it, I suppose that there's a few of you inside those firms, be it with Greg Norman Design and even with Thomson Wolveridge Perrett. There's multiple minds anyway.
Correct.
In that as well. So something you do more often than we probably otherwise think. When people put a name to something, they just go, it's that person. Well, no, there's multiple. And I suppose that also then helps with not just problem solving, but also creativity as well, right?
100%.
So you can just bounce ideas and come up with different things, and that's a very interesting part of it. Good to see. Career highlight, mate, have you got any projects that stand out for you before we start to go down with some of the time we've got left to talk about some other things?
Yeah, look, it sounds like a long time ago, but 2008, 9 and 10, when I was still at Norman Design, we had a a fantastic site to work with. It was sand dunes on the ocean in Vietnam.
Okay.
And I think for me that was a culmination of quite a few years with the Norman Group. The opportunity again to design a golf course on sand dunes and good soft, gentle moving sand dunes was a fantastic opportunity.
Which course? Sorry.
It's called Danang Dunes, or the Dunes course at Danang Golf Club. The club's actually had a few different name changes, but it's there in Danang. So again, I was involved. Part of that design process was actually being part of the master planning process and getting the ground that we wanted for the golf course, but planning it and allowing for 36 holes of golf, and then basically picking the best bits for what we were doing.
Yep.
So yeah, look, that was a golf course on sand. We was literally stripping away what was there and working with the natural ground as best we could, and it was, you literally had tees and green sites just sitting there, and it was a matter of getting the routing to work to get it all together. We touched the coast once. Unfortunately, there was already a deal done in the property side of this group to take coastal land for real estate, but I was actually able to negotiate to get one hole to touch the beach, and but spectacular, a great project, a project working with my good friend and shaper Peter Waddell, who I'd mentioned before, and we'd known each other and worked for many years, and so it was great to just do that project together and
nice.
A natural piece of ground and get a really good result. That's it's been probably overly popular, if anything.
Wow.
It's doing more golf than it should. It's probably doing 80,000 rounds a year, year in, year out. Right. It's kind of getting flogged a little bit, but it's a busy golf destination now, Vietnam.
Good problem to have in a way.
And down the road is Hoi An Shores. It's another piece of golf on sand, but having sand dunes near the ocean in Asia is quite unusual.
Is it? Okay.
There's not a lot of countries that have sand dune golf, so to speak. So it was a great opportunity to work. So that's probably a bit of a career highlight as such.
There you go.
Delivering that project.
Well, the good part is I tag all this stuff in the show notes so people can go and click on it. If they've never heard of it, they can go and see what it's all about. So that's very good. Cool. Mate, we come back to now, fast forwarding a little bit more to recent times. You're all over the place here in Australia. I see you everywhere. I talk to you. Sometimes you're on a plane and I can't get hold of you. Other times you ring me. You're at Perth, at Royal Perth. You've done work recently, now that Royal Sydney's finished. You did the vegetation side of things there with Gil Hand's design, done the course. We're here at Eleanora. You're doing work here at Eleanora. Yep. You've got Clearwater Bay over in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. But some of that's collaboration as well. We mentioned Clayton DeVries Pont, which is here at Eleanora. So let's start here, for example. What's been going on here at Eleanora with the two parties that you're collaborating together with on what are you trying to achieve here?
Yeah, well, I guess... So the collaboration with Clayton DeVries and Pont's really come off the back of Royal Perth.
Okay, we can start there.
That's actually where it started. And I think and where we're doing work right now, Lucas Michel's actually over there, and I'm flying there on Saturday. I'm flying there on Saturday to go and sign off on 3 greens with Lucas Sunday morning. So I was talking to Royal Perth. We were talking about doing a golf course master plan, a vegetation master plan, a few things like this, and then Clayton DeVries and Pont were also in the mix. And I think it was probably Clates who said, well, we're not good on the vegetation piece, and it'd be good to look at, maybe at the end of the day, between Harley Kruse and Kruse Golf and us together, we could do something together and collaborate.
Yeah, right.
And I was open to that, and Clates was open to it, and so was Mike DeVries and Frank Pont. So Frank's basically up in Europe looking after and the European projects. Obviously, Mike DeVries is both the USA and has just completed 7 Mile with Clates and all that sort of deal. So, and Mike and I have had a few things that we've looked at together, even a few years ago when Royal Sydney was being looked at. Mike DeVries and I put a bid in for Royal Sydney together. So, so we kind of knew each other, and so let's do Royal Perth together. It'd be a lot of a great project on a tiny site, and it was all but upside with Royal Perth because. Basically 18 pretty ordinary greens, a chance to do things better and all of us to bring our skills to the table. And it's been we're in year 3 of that project, Royal Perth. 4 greens and some tees in year 1. Last year there was another 6 greens, a large Himalayan-style putting green right out the front of the clubhouse, which has been enormously successful and it's only been open for a few months. And we're now into the final 3rd year of work there, which is 8 greens, the balance of the 18 holes, a bunch of tees, and effectively out of all this, the club's going to get 4 new par 3 holes out of it, and a spare hole, which is a par 3, so 5 brand new par 3 holes, and a bunch of whole new stuff. And look, it's quite an interesting site. It can never be great because we're dealing with 18 holes and 33 hectares. Can it be better than what it was?
33 hectares.
Yeah, it's tiny. It's, Royal Sydney's tied at 43 hectares. This is 33 hectares.
And it's a rectangular shaped sort of block, really, kind of.
It is pretty much. And
look, between the
fortunately, it's flat, because when it's flat, you can get away with shoehorning more golf into a flat site. If it was a site with a lot more undulation where you couldn't fit golf, it would be very difficult. You wouldn't be able to fit it in. If you look at Cottesloe in Perth, which is, in contrast, wildly dynamic ground, and in many ways superior ground to Royal Perth, but Cottesloe has the room that it has. Royal Perth was a tight, flat, rectangular site, as you say. A lot of holes north-south. We've been able to get a few more holes going east-west out of all this. So we've got a bit of more interesting playing angles to the breeze and to the wind. But ultimately, from an agronomic point of view, we've got 18 brand new greens complexes with pure distinction on the greens. We've got Santa Ana green surrounds, because it's been it sort of, through attrition, I guess, eventually became a Kikuyu course throughout. So we're getting back to tight surfaces around greens out of Santa Ana. The tees are all going to be Santa Ana. So it'll be a much better course than what it was. Looking forward to doing that this year. So Lucas is on the tools there, shaping up 3 greens as we speak. But off the back of that, I guess a few other things have come our way across the bow, and let's do it together. And one of them is here at Eleonora.
Yeah, okay.
Mike DeVries and I actually had a look at Eleonora a few years ago together back then even. Okay. So it wasn't totally foreign for Mike DeVries either. And so far, we've done a few things here at Eleonora which have been good. We've done an overall course sort of improvements master plan, looking at the entire 18 holes that's there. And we've delivered them a brand new short game facility down below the golf lodge here, which has been built and they will come, and that's been super busy since it's open. And today I'm here because we're preparing to do a brand new 18th green, 10th tees, and a large 1,500 square metre putting green right out the front of the clubhouse.
Okay.
Where 18 cups and an 18-hole putting course stepping right off the clubhouse terrace.
Not too dissimilar to Royal Perth, I take it, from what you just mentioned and what I've seen photos of. Yep. Right outside the clubhouse.
And they're fun places, and they're fun places for people who just come down and have a putt and go and have a drink and a bite to eat.
Easy to do.
Something to do at the end of the round of golf. I saw a couple of gentlemen walking past the current putting green a couple of months ago, and they were pointing at the putting green, and the guy said, "That's golf for me now," because his body won't let him get round 18 holes of golf.
Sure.
But he can come down here, and by Christmas this year, there'll be an 18-hole putting course where he and his friends can go and putt around 18 holes, and go and have a bit of lunch and socialise. That becomes golf for a senior. So I think in a lot of clubs, these things are going to be quite popular ways of offering a new thing to members, but also thinking about what is golf for someone in their 80s, 85, 90s.
Well, that's right.
And keeping them in their clubs, which is part of their social outlet as well.
So the connections that come from that, like you say, the social connections is part of their routine, week in, week out at times as well.
Yep.
All the positives that go with mental health and physical health, even at some small scale of just an 18-hole walk around the putting green and being here away from home.
Yep.
All these things make a difference, and they've come of age in Australia. I think these putting style greens that you're talking about.
And some of these old boys and ladies, they can't swing a driver anymore, but boy, you watch them putt.
Deadly putts.
Absolutely.
They are very good at what they do.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be playing any putting competition. I'm not throwing anything around with them because I will get smoked. No doubt about it. So there's a bit going on here which is great to see, and the collaboration stuff, it's the creativity as well. It's a wonderful site. Far from flat, but very uniquely Australian, very uniquely Sydney.
Yeah, and I think too, in the context, a lot of, Australia's famous for its sandbelt golf, and even, Mike DeVries, Clates and I have walked, and Lucas Michelle, we've walked around the 18 holes here numerous times since being engaged by the club. And again, it's that collaborative, different minds respond to things differently and see things differently, and so I think from a creative process, that's quite an exciting part of being involved with that process and looking at different parts of the site. And seeing how we can, at the end of the day, make the best possible version in the years to come of 18 holes here at Eleonora. I think for Clates too, he's quite excited by a site like this, which is not sandbelt. You know, it's something a bit different. It's well, we can see the Pacific Ocean here. We're not right on the coast. We're not far from it, but it's kind of inland golf on heavier soils. It's spectacular country in the sense that it's, this sandstone escarpment country that we've got. And we're all for sort of exposing some of that sandstone and exposing, different rock in different parts of the course. And I mentioned Fontainebleau before in Paris, which does that so well. And in a way, that was one of our reference points of golf and exposing the landscape that's here. And the club sits on a lot of a broad site and amazing views from it. There's a whole lot of opportunities to make the golf better in the years to come, and we're quite excited by the prospect here. So it's good.
Very interesting to hear. I'm curious a little bit with this one because this is a historic club. We've got a number of historic clubs around Australia that are coming of age. Some are 100 years plus in some instances, and you've worked at Kalara as well not so long ago, and you mentioned that it's 125 years old. Does history carry much weight when you're architecturally working on a golf course as opposed to a 100-year-old course, as opposed to a 40-year-old course? And if you're looking at it with a critical eye, if you've been brought in by a club, does the history carry much weight with that, with your decisions and the creativity? Do you have to consider any of those things?
Oh, absolutely. I think when you're dealing with a historic club and historic course on a piece of ground, you've really got to that's where you've really got to look at the history of what's happened, and at times you can see where. When the courses were first built, they weren't built by bulldozers. They weren't built by excavators and posi tracks and all this machinery we have at our disposal today. And I guess there's plenty of examples of courses looking to have improved their golf courses in the past, and that work might have happened in the 60s or 70s or 80s, 90s, and it wasn't really sympathetic. Some of that work was pretty,
can be harsh.
Wasn't sympathetic to the actual. The true architectural style and essence of what that club and what that golf course is. Yep. And some of that work was a bit naive, I guess you could say, and maybe didn't look at the history of the course and the architecture. And in some ways, what was originally sort of almost hand built or built with horse and scoop was better than what came in when they brought the bulldozers and started pushing dirt around.
Yep.
With Clates and Lucas, myself, we're consulting a place like Woodlands.
And
Woodlands is an amazing golf course where the ground is relatively undisturbed throughout. There's, the club are great custodians of the course that they have. There's a lot of history that they've documented within Woodlands. They value that history of the golf course, and they've got good reason to, because it is an amazing layout and an amazing place to be out playing golf on beautiful small greens. I guess it's well known for its small greens, which has some challenges itself with the amount of golf being played. But it's a club that hasn't been spoilt with money and bulldozers rushing around and just redoing things. It's been very carefully done. So as consulting to that club and how do we make that golf course better, it's kind of leaving a lot of the architecture alone and respecting that historical architecture that's there, and just doing small things with vegetation improvements, for example, and just
that can easily get out of control.
Carefully, we have done a new first tees and 10th tees, but that was again respecting what was there and working with the site and just making things better, and from an ergonomic point of view, and just thinking things about traffic flow and the ever presence and pressure and demands for rounds of golf, and unfortunately, rounds of golf with golf carts. Which obviously
it's a catch-22 sometimes. But
it is, and it's one of those things where carts on those old traditional golf courses are an issue to deal with, and I guess people living longer, there's probably a big increased demand for carts and the wear. So it's boring things like wear and tear, and where do we send the traffic off here, and how we do that there, and coming up with solutions that try and deal with the elegance and simplicity of a place like Woodlands, and try and just get those little things working better.
Working better, like you say. It's part and parcel of the problems and challenges of modern day architecture in a sense as well, right? Different to what it was 30 or 40 years ago, before the masses of carts that we have today. I'm curious. I've always wanted to ask this one. I think you're the right person to ask you. So have a drink of water before I do. I know we're running out of time. Is there such a thing? Because I love quirky stuff, right? And maybe that's why that question was earlier about different and unusual design features in a golf course. Is there such a thing as bad architecture?
Well, it's a creative endeavour. At the end of the day, look, there is, and it's a combination, I guess, of potentially bad architecture is. No, the answer is yes. Bad architecture in the sense that you've seen greens where, and look, everyone's gone to golf courses and seen greens that have got wildly too much movement, and then wildly too much movement can work in certain places and certain sites, but
sure.
It's but when you look at architecture, we're looking at the holistic process of the whole site and how everything works together as a whole. And I think bad architecture stands out pretty. Again, we're talking about, say, for example, working with existing golf clubs, and when you can see when someone's gone in there, and then you're going, well, that wasn't an original green, was it? You can tell it stands out and doesn't fit with the vernacular of that particular site.
Yep.
Architecture, you've got to think about holes strategically, how they play, what is the hazard asking of the golfer, and bunkers just thrown out purely for eye candy is a complete waste. To me, that's bad architecture. It's a waste of. Good architecture does things well with less bunkering, for example. Yep. Sometimes you need to do more, but less bunkering. But so looking at the strategy of the holes, looking at the width of holes, looking at how putting greens are designed and built, designed to be built and designed to be putted on and work and play and be enjoyable.
And they're maintained as well.
Enjoyable, all those sort of things. So yes, there can be bad architecture combined with bad construction or methodology and things like that. But I've heard of a golf course recently in Sydney, and where I'm hearing that they've got the greens at over 13 on the stint meter on a regular members golf course, which has got greens that are relatively new. I think I haven't seen them, and then they've got wild shapes in them. It just must be a nightmare for members to go and play that. So, is that a combination of architecture and I guess, and I think there's a bit of unfortunately, a bit of a sort of bragging right, locker room bragging rights almost over, well, our greens are 13 and what are your greens, and our greens are 10. This race to wear with green speed, which is just nonsense, and it's and if your greens are wildly shaped and you've got green speeds at 13, that sounds combination of. If you're going to be running, no one should be running greens at that speed on a regular golf course.
Full stop, yeah.
But and if you're designing greens, when we did Kalara, for example, when I did 18 new greens there, yep. I'd envisaged 10.5 on the stint meter would be what the greens would be set up as. I'm not going to, the shapes and the design was designed for that.
Yep.
If I ever hear Kalara being 12 or 13, I was, guys, what are you doing?
Yeah,
and
sure.
I guess the thing is these days, modern tools allows the ability to get green speeds at 12 or 13 is...
You can do it on a whim now.
It's not hard, right? So the tools are there to do it. So that's not really the turfcraft anymore. I think it's, turfcraft is... The tools are there to do that, so we can go off the spectrum. When Royal Melbourne hosted the Asian Pacific Amateur Championship a couple of years ago, the RNA run that event, and Chris Gay from the RNA, who I've known for many years, is a boy from Maffra in Gippsland, Victoria. He's the director of agronomy with the RNA based out of Singapore and running that event. And he said to Richard Forsyth, we don't want the greens any faster than 11 on the stint meter for this tournament.
Yep.
Some of the best amateur golfers of the region were playing this tournament, and there was a desire to keep the greens at 11. So if that's happening at a tournament level at Royal Melbourne, why should a humble members course on the lower North Shore of Sydney be running their greens at 13 and thinking that's good?
I think you'll be surprised how widespread those numbers are, to be fair, because I know of them. I know where they are, and that's a personal opinion. I think we've gone too far because it's too easy to go fast. It's too easy to make greens as a greenkeeper, as a superintendent, more than ever. I mean, even yeah, we know more. We know how to trick it up. We know how to get those speeds faster and easier, and you can do it on a whim. I was able to do it at Katoomba, and those greens were 80 years old, 90 years old, and it was wrong. And I didn't know that until you work it out the hard way. But that's by the by.
But I think the measure of the setup of greens is really, and I think this is perhaps where. And look, I'm not a golf course superintendent, as you know. Of course, I'm an architect, but I think that, fortunately, I've been able to see and see what people like Richard Forsyth has done all these years at Royal Melbourne, and it's really the craft is maintaining greens with low inputs and achieving firmness, and if you can achieve firmness, that's where the real craft in the turf management comes in, and maintaining turf firmness. And Richard's doing everything to maintain firmness there at Royal Melbourne, because it's the firmness with the speed is the final product that members and tournament player is experiencing. And for that, the bounce of the ball on greens, and actually even the surrounds of greens, that ball bounce on a firm surface is way more important than having green speed off the charts.
13, 14 plus,
it's the combination of both, and that's part of the essence of Royal Melbourne is that firmness. So for I guess for me, I'd rather see firmness before speed.
Yeah, okay.
I'd rather see a firm green with balls bouncing and the green at 9 or 10 on the centimetre than soft greens and something at 12.
Just rolling. Yeah, that's right. Yep. The reason I asked that question is because I've had conversations with fellow golfers, and sometimes we come away and someone will say, oh, geez, that was designed badly, that hole, or that green just doesn't work. And I wanted to hear specifically, that's why I've waited till I probably got to you, because I've got a better rapport with you, I think, than other people. I can just throw it at you about bad architecture, because I think sometimes people don't see it the right way. I was curious to see why you would say something would be bad architecture, and the reasons behind your viewpoints of something like that. I go back to quirk, big fan of quirk. Is there a fine line between being quirky and being bad?
Oh, I don't think quirky should equal bad.
No, but can you push it too far? I've seen par threes with trees in front of greens, from the tee to the green. I mean, where is that go from quirky? I've seen par 5 and you got a tree right in the middle of it, 2/3 of the way down the hole, and then you go to another course and it's got a par 3 with a tree in front of the green that's 6 metres tall, and you go, really?
Yeah, look, I guess I'm not a fan of trees and fairways, full stop. But, so I would, you'd never see a course that I've been involved with or design. Well, no, I lie, because at Settlers Run, a golf course we did in Melbourne, there was a beautiful old tree that we weren't allowed to remove.
Yeah.
We ended up splitting the fairway around that tree, but with generous width that really it was really taking the more common, 80% of shots would be around the left side of this tree, and there was a lot of width to play that. And it was a par 5 hole, so it was a bit different. But
move away from a tree, just something different. And sometimes it could be the 15th at Augusta with water in front of the green as an approach to a par 5. That might only work with pros, but sometimes is that going to work with the average person? Probably not, really. Do you know what I mean?
I guess the question is that quirky? So quirky for me is something that's
train line through the middle of a golf hole at Royal Adelaide.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I guess maybe I'm too conservative. You don't go and design quirkiness just for the sake of being different. And I think I think if you apply principles of good architecture, if you've got a site where there is a stone wall, there is a railway line, or there is something there that is part of the site that's there, then, and if it's brought in and left and retained, like you mentioned windmills, for example. I think it's is it the 10th hole at the Mooner at the Nationals? Got a windmill on it.
I know the photo, but I've never been there.
I'm pretty sure that Bob kept that there and designed the hole, and there was plenty of room to work around it. Settlers Run, I mentioned before, we had a windmill on that site.
Yeah, so right. Okay, there you go.
We left the windmill and we designed. We had the room to do that, and it was left there as part of a sort of a feature of the hole. But it was, it was more, for want of a better word, the decoration of the historic sort of stuff
of
that
the site.
Had a function to pump water on the site. That was part of a rural, history of the site.
Yep.
Kind of left there as a bit of a testament for it being a former farmland, right? But in terms of actual quirkiness in the play of a hole from tee to green, I'm not just for the sake of being different. No, I think I'd prefer to apply good sound architectural principles to design, and if it's something there that you incorporate as part of the history of the site or part of the essence of the site or part of
like a North Berwick wall, for example,
or part of the culture of the site. As I mentioned, I've worked in Indonesia, Thailand, India, China, whatever, these different countries, South Korea, is each country, I guess part of the interest is and each site, China's not just one country, Northern Chinese, Southern Chinese, Shanghainese, there's different things, so culturally, if there's a cultural element to bring into the site, into the golf course design, it was already there or part of it.
Yep.
Then yes, absolutely. So, and I think that's part of looking at the essence of the site, looking at its, what is the soul of the site. Sometimes it is those local cultural things that you bring into the site. And it might be some of the golf course furniture that comes in later, but in terms of golf architecture. In Vietnam, we had on the 16th hole there, the par 3 hole, between the walk from the 16th green to the 17th, went past a Vietnam war bunker that was like a military bunker, and out with slots in it for rifles and machine guns. There's an observation bunker right on the coast. That was it's not in the golf hole, it's just part of the journey. But it's sort of a cultural. We weren't going to bulldoze it over. And it was a interesting thing as part of the round of golf to leave there as a testament to
what the site was before. Yeah. But equally, it's not in front of the green on the approach to the putting surface.
That's right.
But I see lots of it now. Sometimes I see it introduced and designed from scratch. Sometimes I see it as part of the landscape that was before. You talk about windmills and different things like that, or trees or whatever.
Yeah.
And I love different things. I love the train line at Royal Adelaide. I stood there for an hour and just watched people play the holes and the train go past, and it just fascinated me because I'd never seen anything like it before. And I love quirkiness for its different and individual reasons. But again, I got it out of you in the end. I think I got it out of you. Just what I was trying to get is there a fine line in the way that you view it? Because everyone's got their own view and creativity, design style and all that. Harley, well, look, time's up. The clock's ticked. I think we're good to go, mate. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope everyone listening got something out of it. There's going to be lots of things in the show notes for people to click on. But, mate, appreciate your time telling us about some of your projects, telling us about your career history and how you got into golf course architecture, the people that you've worked with through your career. Some have now passed and some have now got their own design firms. And it's great to see how everyone's come of age and how golf course architecture in Australia has evolved on the whole, and more broadly with people like yourself. And you mentioned Paul Mogford and Neil Crafter and Justin Try, all these different people. And we've got new, younger people coming through. Mate, I see it from where I sit. It's great to have you involved. Harley Kruse from Kruse Golf. I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Harley Kruse from Kruse Golf. Another fantastic interview to have on this segment. McMahon's a design brief on the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. A big thank you to Harley Kruse from Kruse Golf. And I have to say thank you to Harley because he took some time out. He was very, very busy at Eleonora. He was in some meetings doing work there on that day. So a big thank you to Harley for taking the time out to sit down with me for that conversation on the podcast. I also have to thank Eleonora Country Club and Director of Grounds, Jake Gibbs, for their wonderful hospitality, giving us a private dining room to do that interview. I mean, it is just, if you ever get the opportunity to go to Eleonora Country Club for any reason, take it up because it's a very, very special part of our country, our golf landscape. There's no two ways about it. And I'm very grateful that they were able to accommodate myself and Harley, giving us that private room where we could conduct the interview. It was just the outlook over the coast off, because it's elevated not far from the northern beaches of Sydney, just up. It's about 130 odd metres above sea level, not far away from the coastline itself. And the wonderful view outside the windows is quite amazing. So I do say thank you very much to Eleonora Country Club for their hospitality and looking after us. And Harley's got some great insight. He has been around, he's seen so much, and you heard right there, hasn't he done some amazing stuff? And he's worked with some amazing people and continues to do so. Collaboration is obviously something that Harley talked a bit about, which I like to hear, and it's great to get those insights about what architects are thinking, how they like to work as well, which is a wonderful thing to be able to hear. And thankfully, Harley was open to all those types of conversations. One that I was really interested in as well was I had to ask the question. It had been sitting in my mind, and you heard me say it was whether there was such a thing about bad architecture. And I really liked Harley's response. It was really quite interesting. So there you go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for you out there are lots of clickables in the show notes. As always, there will be with this one. Lots of things that were mentioned and talked about in the podcast. And I've done all the homework for you. I really do appreciate your help with passing it around. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing gets you the notifications to know when the latest segment of the podcast is out. And by liking it and sharing it gets the algorithms working their best, along with reviews, written reviews, and star reviews. So any written reviews are the best. They are the single ones that do the most work. So if you don't mind taking the time out there, I would greatly appreciate it and say thank you in advance. You've heard me say that I like to get to know the architect and share with you their background, where they come from, because there's some of the members of the Society of Australian Golf Course Architects that many of you out there probably have never heard of. Some of you may have never even heard of Harley Kruse before, but you've heard of some of the design firms that he's worked for previous to his own company. You also probably know about some of the golf courses that he's designed as well. So it's always good to get a feel for who these people are, who these architects are, and then I like to pick their brains, and it certainly gives us an opportunity to have them back on the podcast at a later time to discuss just a few more architecture deep dives as well. So I've got things in the pipeline, got some ideas bubbling up and around, so I've been having some conversations with a few of the architects and looking to get them on with a little bit of a different some different topics of conversation, different deep dives. So looking forward with plenty more to come. Now, it's wonderful to have McMahon's as a partner of this segment of the podcast, the Design Brief. So make sure you check them out at their website. If you're looking to do any type of work on your golf course, construction-wise, and improvements and changes to your golf course, McMahon's are the people you need to talk to. Check them out at their website at mcmahons.net.au. And that's how you can go and find out more information about them. You can see where they work. You can see the types of projects that they do. Nothing too big or too small, talking to the team at McMahon's, which is what I'm here to share with you. And you've heard from Bruno as well. So you know the people involved in the company of McMahon's. Make sure you talk to them and get them in that conversation early when you're thinking about the work that you're looking to do, because that's the best way about all of this, is to get people involved early on so you can have the right conversations and ask the right questions to move forward. Check them out, mcmahons.net.au. I will leave you with it once again. You hit them clean, we'll keep them green, and I'll catch up with you very soon.